I lost my father tragically. His life was taken in his jewelry store in New York City. My poor mother, she really sunk into a very deep depression and she never recovered from it. She had chronic untreated mental illness all the way to her late 70s. And that definitely took me down a rabbit hole of confusion, isolation, neglect, feelings of abandonment, childhood trauma. It is proven that 2/3 of every single child in the world will have a traumatic event, whether it is the loss of a loved one, being bullied at school or by family members, or sexual assault. I experienced all of those three by the time I was 9 years old.
Hi, Blanca. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here, Mark. What a joy and an honor it is for me to be here.
Thank you. It's an honor to have you here. I'm super interested in talking to you because you have dedicated your life and career to helping individuals understand the long term effects of untreated childhood trauma.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about how this became a mission in your life.
This takes me all the way back to my childhood when I lost my father tragically. His life was taken in his jewelry store in New York City back in the 19th. So back in that era and in my culture, I'm from Puerto Rico originally. In my culture, talking about deceased people, talking about loved ones passing on, and especially in tragic situations, it was total taboo. It was something that was not spoken to about, and I felt like I had no support. I was in grief and in loss, lost, totally isolated from the world and what my world meant at that moment, which was, of course, my beloved father. From then on, my poor mother, God bless her soul, she really sunk into a very deep depression and she never recovered from it. She had chronic untreated mental illness all the way to her late 70s. She never really helped herself because at that era, it was a different time in life when chronic mental illness was taboo. It was another shush. You don't talk about the dead. You don't talk about mental illnesses. And that definitely took me down a rabbit hole of confusion, isolation, neglect, feelings of abandonment, childhood trauma. It is proven that 2/3 of every single child in the world will have a traumatic event, whether it is the loss of a loved one, being bullied at school or by family members, or sexual assault. I experienced all of those three by the time I was 9 years old. So I bottled up, I boxed up in a big box all of this trauma, and we know that trauma is wounds that haven't been healed, and that took me to a very deep down the rabbit hole of many dark seasons in my life. And when I finally started to take matters into my own hands and understand that we are capable of change, we are capable of changing the narrative, we are capable of making it better for ourselves, that's when this trauma that I endured for so long, I picked up the pieces and I became what I am today. What my mission is in this life, and there is bigger than myself. And this is why I truly believe that we're all capable of improving our quality of life, no matter what age we are.
Wow. That's deep. Sorry for all the things that happened to you by the age of 9. Any one of this is difficult and challenging and really hard to overcome. And the fact that all of them happened to you by 9. At what age did you really start comprehending what had happened and started feeling the effects of it?
Definitely when I went into my preteen and teenage years, my sexual assault didn't stop when I was 9 years old. It was different phases in different situations. So by the time I was 12 years old, I was assaulted by a cousin again. Of course, because of my shame and my silence, I never spoke about it to anybody. And that behavior just kept on really bottling up. It kept on accumulating, and me trying unsuccessfully to throw things under the rug and under the rug. That really doesn't work out at all. And the moment when I really did start to understand fully that if I don't change, I won't see any progress in my life, either in a personal level, emotional level, even professional level. That's when I really started to take matters into my hands and speak up. seek for help for a change. I was many decades of my life trying to navigate through this trauma on my own terms when I really didn't know how to pick up those tools that there are available to all of us and put them into good use. And when I finally understood that I cannot do this alone anymore, I cannot keep on surviving when all I want to do is I want to live a thriving life. And the only way I could do this is by changing. And change is unavoidable. Change is part of our life. Change is like breathing. Change is like sleeping. We do not go without. And that was the aha moment that really and finally took me to start picking up the pieces little by little with patience, confronting that trauma rather than running away from it like I did for so long. And it took me definitely to where I am today. And I'm very grateful for it all.
If I'm listening to this and I have some type of a childhood trauma that I've gone through that is affecting my work, we have an entrepreneur audience here that's affecting them from starting their business, living their life to the fullest. We talked about some tools that were unaware to you back in the day that you're aware of now. What are some of these tools that you would like to share with them that they could get the help that you couldn't?
Yes, definitely. Some of the tools I picked up, this is my individual journey. Everybody can pick up these tools at whatever fits your needs best, because we are different and we are not a one size fit all kind of healing journey. What started really working for me was reading self-help books. Once I discovered that through a book, because this was the era of books only, there was really no internet, there was no tablets, there was no YouTube, there was none of these beautiful platforms that really help us to navigate through things even easier. But back in my day, I started with self-help books with powerful names like Bob Proctor, Anthony Robbins, Marianne Williamson, and so much more. And that started to really open my mind to, hey, these people have been through very tough situations. These people made it through. And not only made it through, they became worldwide figures with missions that definitely a long time ago became big. I started to show vulnerability, because vulnerability is not weakness. Vulnerability is stepping into your power and going in that place where you're supposed to go so you can move on with your life to the next step and pick up and learn those lessons. But it's not only about learning the lesson, it's about embracing the lesson. It's about really hugging that lesson and taking it in stride and say to yourself, this lesson is amazing. This progress is amazing. Do I want to go back to that person that I used to be? Heck no, that it just doesn't happen. And it really opened, to me, it opened a door for many, much better things to come. I went to counseling. I have done group counseling. I have done one-on-one counseling. I have done grief counseling. Grief counseling is a beautiful tool for people that lose their loved ones. When my kids lost their father, all three of us, we went to grief counseling. And even though I wasn't in a relationship anymore with the father of my kids, the fact of the matter was that we were both in a house plagued with domestic abuse. So it was much deeper. The rooting was much deeper than just the loss, my kids' loss of their father. It was changing the narrative in a heartbeat into something new to come, and how to navigate through that grief, through that loss, understanding that grief is not a menu of you go through these stages. It's about understanding that, yes, you go through the stages, you go through the sadness, to the anger, to the missing, all of these things, but it's not in a certain order. It happens and it comes naturally. And the more we embrace that loss, the more support and love we get in these moments that are so difficult that we are not even supposed to make it on our own. This is when, for example, this powerful platform right here, this conversation that you and I are having, this is a powerful platform for others to say, wow, this is an eye-opener right here. There is a possibility for me. I'm in a similar situation from Mark and Blanca. This is something that I really can pursue, or maybe open myself a little bit to it. That curiosity wake up on someone and say, hey, maybe through their story, I can look for a better narrative myself, because if they did it, I'm a stranger here, okay? I'm not Tony Robbins, I am not Bob Proctor, but I am an individual that decided to make this childhood trauma, all of these horrible dark seasons that I went through, make it worth it through talking about it to the masses. And it's not for recognition and it's not for attention, it's to help others improve their quality of life.
Let's talk about fear. So many of us who are listening to this, including me in my stage in my life, I knew what to do. There were times when I logically and intellectually knew what I needed to do, but I was afraid. And especially if you're a victim of some type of a traumatic event in your life, those dig deep. And it creates a type of fear where we just feel paralyzed, and that stops our personal growth. So, what are some things that you would say we could do to slowly get ourselves out of that fear? Because a lot of times, some of these resources that you mentioned, we're even afraid to ask for help from them. Because, like you said, you grew up in a culture where even talking about it was bad, let alone if somebody in your culture found out you went to this organization, it's taboo. So, even overcoming the fear to ask for help, how do we go about that?
There is something that the professionals call the law of familiarity. This is what we are used to, this is the way that we are, and not to say indoctrinated, but this is what we know. We are used to what we know, whether it is for the better or the worse. We are used to what we know. We get to this comfort zones of, I am scared of even trying to make it better for myself because I am too used to being scared. I am too used to being in fear. I am too used to that syndrome knocking on our heads saying, no, you're not capable about it. But even if we have this possibility, even if there's somewhere in your heart that says, I think I'm really capable of this. But this is when our minds can really, and our thought process can really betray us and where we really deserve to be in life. And here we go to going back to our past. When my father passed, I was scared. I was scared of not having him, of what's going to happen without him. I was scared of my mother and her ups and downs in life. I was scared of her overreacting depending on how she felt at that moment, because here we go again. I was brought up, in all of my entire natural life, I've been around mental illnesses, starting with my own mother, chronic untreated mental illness. In the 70s, it was taboo. It was a one size fits all kind of environment. And it was either you're crazy and your life is over, or you hide it and you pretend that you have nothing going on with you. But coming back to that fear, my fear and being terrified of trying to shine with my own light, it dates back to having family members bullying me, saying something that goes like this. Now I laugh about it because it's, oh my God, they're so silly. But back in the day, it really shook me to the core. My family members used to say, you talk when the chickens pee. Imagine that. It's wow. And this is when many years later, I said to myself, do the chickens even pee? Because I really don't know. No, the chickens own their digestive system and their intestinal system. It goes only to, everything goes to one place, and the pee and the poo comes out at the same time. So imagine how humiliating. Imagine how much of a downer this comment alone is. And I would be in Puerto Rico around many chickens, and when I would see a chicken doing their thing, I would be like, wow, that's how much worth my word is. Here we go. Oh, is that profound or what? And of course, not having very important figures in my family, not believing in the word that I say, always being punished because I'm a curious person. I'm a curious person to this day. I have always danced to the beat of my own drum my whole entire natural life. And this is when I don't think so. I know I was very misunderstood because of all the baggage that I was carrying for so long, ever since I was a little girl, and I had to figure it out on my own. And I was this scared. This is the moments when something very big is coming my way that sometimes, and I'm thankful to say that sometimes, The imposter syndrome is, oh wow, how about it? I mess it up. What's gonna happen? I mess it up and it's gonna look bad. And it's like, oh, whoa, woman, shake it off, because you got this. You got this. And there is a phrase that I really say to myself in a daily basis. I write it everywhere. I put it in my planner. I put it in papers and post-it notes. I am enough. I am enough. I got this. I got this. I got this. And repetition is the mother of all skill. The more we repeat, the more progress we will have. Progress is all about progress, not perfection. But going back to fear, fear. Fear is a very profound emotion that can take us to very deep, dark places. But the same way fear is here, so is bravery, so is hope, so is progress. That's for sure.
Talked about putting post-it notes around saying I'm enough. Talked about carving your life with people around you who love you and appreciate you, having the courage to be able to speak up for yourself and speak your mind. It's almost like you're designing a life on purpose that you enjoy living in. You're designing a life in which you're a participant as opposed to just a spectator. What are some other things one can do to be able to create that life for themselves? If I'm stuck in a place right now and I'm looking at my life and I just don't like it, are there other tips, hacks you have that could help them get on and start living a new life?
Yes, absolutely. We are fully participants in our own destiny, either for the good, the bad, the ugly, or all of them at the same time. You may come from a place where there's sorrow, where there's confusion, where there's mental illnesses, where is there instability, where you don't know what's going to happen next. But many things in life is really not knowing about what is going to happen next. We don't have control over everything that happens in our lives. We got to surrender to what works for us. And this is when this comfort zone of being used to this law of familiarity, getting used, staying where what we know, sticking to what we know, versus saying, how about I start learning something new? How about I do it for myself, not for anybody else? How about I choose change, because change is good. Change is beautiful. Change is embarking in a new adventure towards your growth. And how important growth is. We are in a state of growth or in a state of decay. Our minds are either evolving or dissolving. Take a pick. We are fully participants in our success in life or our demise in life, or both, because let's face it, there is a high tide and there is a low tide, and there is the wave, and life is a wave. Life is the up and down. This is why instead of trying to be like an oak tree, a banyan tree, I am not movable, I am strong, wow, I am powerful. How about be a palm tree? How about being flexible? This is why we have hurricane season every single year here in the tropics. And the trees that survive the most Category 5 hurricanes, 2 mile-per-hour winds, are palm trees because they are flexible. And the same way a palm tree is flexible, we really need to embrace and hug flexibility in this life, because God planned and we plan and God laughs. There is this very interesting saying that I absolutely love. We plan and God laughs. God has been laughing at me, with me, for a very long time. And you know what? I am all for it. But be flexible, be open. Don't be so hard on yourself. Don't be over demanding that, okay, I'm going to get better and I got a month to feel better because I got other things to do. Wake up call. This is a process. And in my experience, this is for the rest of my life, my healing journey, facing those triggers, because the triggers will always come to you in the most unexpected places. And how you deal with those triggers, how you deal with going back to that moment where you were before, how you're going to deal with it today, that makes a whole difference in the world. That is a fact. That is the fact of my life. And I have plenty of people that really share with me. So once I understood that flexibility, I got to be flexible with certain things in life, definitely my mind is feeling better. And most of all, be kind to your mind. Your self-talk is more than important. The most important conversation that you have in your life is the one with yourself. Imagine that. I had no comprehension of this concept until not long ago. But once I really got it, oh, I'll never let go of the beautiful conversations that I am meant to have with myself, because I was my own worst enemy. I would be insulting myself every single time. And when we put ourselves down on our own, you're giving an open door for everybody else to put you down as well. So watch out with what you're feeling and thinking at all times, please.
For those who have struggled sometimes with childhood trauma, or even not even childhood trauma, where they've been bullied, even as adults, a lot of times when they look back at their lives, they feel that part of that happened because there wasn't a clear boundary that
Mhm.
was drawn, right? And how does this conversation of flexibility fit in with the concept of boundary? Because many feel that the reason they got in this first place was because they weren't clear and strong and decisive about this is what I'm okay doing and this is what I'm not okay doing. So, can you clarify how both of those can exist and one can be flexible in some areas, but also have clear boundaries about what is okay and what is not okay?
Yes, definitely. That is a great one. That is for sure. Boundaries. I grew up where there was not really much boundaries about when it came to respecting one human being from the other. Okay. I knew boundaries from my father. He had his values set in place. He was a goal-getter, trendsetter, ahead of his time. He didn't give up. He didn't know the English language. He was self-taught. And there was no Google, there was no Babbel, there was no streaming services anywhere in the 19. So he learned himself how to navigate through his own life, setting his boundaries and very strong ones. But when my father, on his demise, all of that died with him. Not really. There's always a legacy, there's always a mark that people that are empowered leave on other people's lives, even if it was for a short period of time. I lost my father when I was 8 years old, but definitely, oh, from the moment we are little kids, oh, that is when that sponge is ready to absorb absolutely everything of your surroundings. Being flexible when it comes to decision making is a beautiful thing. But when it comes to boundaries, that's when you become an oak and you do not bow down. I didn't have a set of boundaries because I didn't want to offend anybody. I didn't want to make anybody feel bad. Okay, let me let go of this boundary because I don't want to make him angry. I don't want to make her sad. And that was the moment when my boundaries were wobbly. They were unstable because of my low self-esteem and my low self-worth and my self-destructive patterns. There is no other way to put it because that was my reality. And I know exactly where my poor boundary setting came from. Fast forward today, fast forward 9 years ago, when I said to myself, here we go again. It's time for change. It's time to set the boundaries. I am not going to settle for less than what I am worth. In that, I have no self-worth. That's why boundaries to me, they were practically non-existent. Practically non-existent because I was a yes girl, a yes woman. I don't want to offend you. I don't want to make this one upset. Oh my God, I think this one look at me a little bit weird. What did I do to make them feel like that? And this is when low self-esteem, low self-worth, and self-destructive patterns came really into play. And it was more or less dominating my entire livelihood and what my environment was about, because tracks. And when you are in a self-destructive pattern, guess what happens? All of the rest of the self-destructive pattern people, they will attract each other. And it's a vicious circle, and it can be a never-ending one unless you make a decision of getting out of the damn circle and making something better for yourself. And that's when this circle of people that you thought that they were the best people around, you say, I don't relate to these people anymore. What is happening to me? Beautiful things are happening to me. That is for sure. Oh my God. And that's when I saw, oh, the sky is really open. There's so much probability here and possibility. Life is not about white and black anymore. It's the colors of the rainbow. And this is when flexibility is beautiful, because the sunny days are here, and so are the cloudy days, and so are the rainy days, and so are the stormy days. But those boundaries are the rooting of who you want to be, no matter the storm, no matter the cloud, and no matter how sunny it is out there. Please consider this.
Powerful, powerful. I know in order to now live a very well-rounded life, you also like to dance, and you also like to sing, and you also like to laugh. Tell us that aspect of life. How do you keep up with the joy and the youthfulness of it?
I grew up, here we go again. This is the dualities of life, because the same way I was raised in a very unstable environment, everybody from my father's family and many from my mother's family, they are jokesters. They love humor. Puerto Rico is a place where everything is with live music, it's live instruments. And is there something that has been part of the essence of who I am, is dancing, singing, playing music, embracing those beautiful moments. To me, humor really started at home, because my father was a jokester. He was a prankster. He will make a joke out of anything and every situation. And that definitely, to this day, how the power of laughter is so healing in our lives, how the power of remembering beautiful things about this person that is not here anymore, it helps me to cope through the loss, through the loneliness, through the tears. And dancing and music has been the most consistent, stable relationship that I have had with something in my life. In all the inconsistencies and traumas in my life, music and dance. Ever since I was a little girl, because here we go again, my parents were avid music listeners. They had, I remember the long planes, the LPs, oh my God, stacks of music from all over the world. Argentinian tango, Brazilian bossa nova, mambo music. It was the era of the huge orchestras. It was the era of the rumba, the mambo. And my mother would say, do you know that your father and I would go dancing in this beautiful dance halls, and that gets silly? And yeah, I don't want to know. Okay, stop it right there. Please just go back to the dancing hall and going to these beautiful parties and fiestas. And Puerto Rico is all about the music. All about the music. They can have a protest and it's all about the music. They can bring the governor, take the governor out of Puerto Rico, and it was all with the beat of music. Imagine that. So this is why music, dance, movement is medicine. If you have anything, if your mind is clouded, if you're stressed out, just take a walk, do some physical activity. It really is. It helps you with being a super ager like myself. The more physical activity we have, the better quality of life we will have for the rest of our lives, all the way to whenever the universe decides to take us. And that's why dancing and music is imperative. I do not go with dancing and music ever in my life, and it brings a huge smile to my face and it makes me want to say, okay, when I am done with Mark, I'm just gonna put that salsa music on and let's dance a little bit to celebrate this amazing podcast that we are doing today. Definitely
Love it, love it. With you, it's just such an honor and pleasure, because the duality of life, the
yes.
seriousness of it and the fun of it, the strength of it, but the flexibility of it, the laughter and the joy and the mirth, but the ability to stand up for oneself and say no is no, showing compassion to ourselves, but also being there for others. Your personality, your journey, your life, everything that you're doing now is encapsulates all of that.
Thank
It
you.
just goes to show how wonderful a human being you are. And the fact that you have chosen to take your knowledge to go out there to help others and not just stop at doing good for yourself, you're a gift to the world, Blanca.
Thank you
Thank
so
you so
much.
much for
Means a
being on
lot.
the
Oh,
show. Thank you
thank
so
you.
much for being on the show. What final words do you have for our listeners?
Don't let your past define who you are and where you are going in life. There's a great inspirational speaker that I still follow to this day called Jim Rohn. And he used to say, life does not get better by chance. It gets better by change. Mark, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being on the show.